The Houston Texans are primed to make a run next year. They've built off of the trenches. They have added weapons for CJ Stroud. They have moved on from star left tackle Laramie Tunsil, of course, formerly from the Miami Dolphins, and decided to go with draft capital. The past 2 years, they have won playoff games. They have come up with big wins in the playoffs, but have fallen short. 2 years ago against the Baltimore Ravens on the road, and last year against the Chiefs on the road. The theme is, when they're in the divisional round game, they want to have that game at home and give themselves a shot, a much better shot at getting to the AFC Championship game. That is the expectation for Houston, is getting to the AFC Championship game in 2025. 13-4 is my overall prediction of what Houston will go. They have a very tough schedule, of course, but they have built, like I spoke about, in the right positions. Will Anderson Jr., the former third overall pick in the draft, that trade with Arizona has been a spectacular decision. Danielle Hunter out of Minnesota, bringing him over, has been a great decision. Kalen Bullock, who they took out of USC, they have drafted well. They have made the right moves within the trenches, and they are set to have a tremendous year, especially the fact that they have more weapons than Houston ever has. Nico Collins has people saying he's a top 5 wide receiver in the National Football League. Jayden Higgins, he's a very talented wide receiver. Him and Jaylin Noel, the 2 second and third round draft picks this year for Houston, put up huge numbers for Iowa State with Rocco Beck. So what will it all turn into? All these guys I just talked about, Joe Mixon in the backfield along with Nick Chubb, of course. Is he going to get carries? What will it turn into? Is it going to turn into wins? Yes, I think it will. 13 to be exact, but where do they come? It won't come week 1. I'll say that much. They're at the Rams, 28-24. I think it's a loss very early in the year, and it's a taste of reality going up against a great offense, of course, in Los Angeles, as well as a very good defense. I think these are 2 of the best 5 teams in the National Football League in 2025. LA, with the veteran leadership with Matt Stafford and hitting Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, is able to rival any 2 guys that you can come up with for Houston. This one just gets turned into a who can get a stop late in the game. I think the offense has struggled to get it going in the first half. Maybe it's 7-10 in the first half, 7-3, but then the second half, you get the offense is starting to pick up. But the Rams pulling out a big win at home, and then week 2, you get that win. It's a Monday night game against a very tough Tampa Bay football team. Remember, these 2 games to start off the year, you might be an AFC fan or a Houston fan and not respecting the NFC. You need to respect some of these teams in the NFC, especially at the top where you have the Rams who win the division, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know all about Emeka Egbuka if you're a fan of CJ Stroud, most likely, because CJ wanted Emeka Egbuka to add. They ended up with Noel and Higgins, so it worked out for him. But Emeka Egbuka is the 3rd wide receiver for Tampa Bay, behind Chris Godwin coming back for injury, as well as Mike Evans. If they can retain that ability with Evans and Godwin, and Emeka's truly the number 3, that's going to be a great game, which means it's a great win for Houston to come up with. Can they get pressure on Baker Mayfield, get him off his target, right? His position where he's going to be throwing the ball, where he wants to throw it. Can they get him uncomfortable? Can they stop the run and make him have to win the game throwing to all these guys? Because on the secondary, I've got a lot of faith in Kamari Lassiter, and Derek Stingley, I think, is a top 5 corner in the National Football League, and Kalen Bullock, as well as the pass rush. We already had mentioned Will Anderson, as well as Danielle Hunter, but in the middle of that defense, right, there's Sheldon Rankins, there's Nico Autry, and there's Mario Edwards, as well as Darrell Taylor that Houston brought over from Chicago. That is one of the best defenses in football. I even forgot to mention the name Jalen Petrie, who's a good player. So they end up 1-1 to start the year. This thing just gets blasted off from that point. They get a huge win, 37-10 against Jacksonville. They could have Travis Hunter, but he is only one guy, even if he can play both sides of the ball. Wide receiver, you've got guys in Stingley and Lassiter that can run with him. On defense, when Travis Hunter is playing wide receiver, like that's crazy to think that he can go on the defensive side of the ball as well as play offense. The guys can run with him. When he is playing defense specifically, though, Nico Collins, bigger size. Higgins, Noel can beat him anywhere versus like he's only going to be covering one person. Tank Dell is most likely going to be back playing for Houston. Like, there are going to be maybe 5 different guys in that offense that will be threats if Tank Dell is back. Like, there's still Christian Kirk coming over as an addition to that offense. He's effective. So 37-10. I just think Houston is too strong, too deep compared to a lesser roster in Jacksonville. And they'll be 2-1 heading into their Week 4 showdown with Tennessee. It's the more of the same stuff. I think that Cam Ward might have 3 points going into the fourth quarter of this one and maybe gets a late score, but 28-10 was just too much up front to have to handle for the young rookie quarterback. When you take a quarterback that high, likely means that you didn't get the opportunity to take a piece on the defensive side of the ball that you ultimately would have really liked to. A win for the Texans, and how about 3-1 heading into a game at Baltimore? A win, 30-17. I'm telling you, this is the theme of 2025 for Houston. 4-1 coming right out the gate before the bye week. They're able to contain Lamar Jackson. All of the athletes built on it. Like, I think that Will Anderson in his own right is going to be able to contain Lamar Jackson somewhat. Didn't see that happen a whole lot last year, but they are speedy on that side of the ball. And then on the other, like, I just think that Houston has more playmakers that can get open for CJ Stroud in the pocket than that Baltimore will have to cover. Pretty much every single defense in football will struggle to be able to do that. A win before the bye week, 4-1 right out of the gate for Houston. Pike week comes at not maybe in a great time. You're on a 4-game win streak and you're going to the road at Seattle. The offense keeps turning 35-20. This is going to be a top 3-4 offense in football next year. CJ Stroud will be in the conversation for MVP, maybe close to 40 touchdowns throwing and 4,500 yards. That's the expectation within that offense. Year 3 for Stroud after 2 very good years. Rookie season was great. Maybe slower in his sophomore year, his second year, sophomore year. But at Seattle, again, this is a tough team. Seattle is a pretty good roster. I'm just looking at the matchup specifically and where I see the advantages. You go through the receiving core, they can match up every single team's strength that has a positional group where you're like, wow, like that's going to be pretty tough to be able to cover. Like, are they going to be able to keep those guys in check? Like, maybe if it's Jalen Milroe, absolutely can. They just beat Lamar Jackson. If it's Sam Darnold, absolutely they can keep him in the pocket and make them beat him throwing or running the football. Love that Houston is so balanced. So they get a win, 5-1. Home game against the 49ers. It's a tight one against San Francisco. 24-17 win at home, NRG Stadium. The ability for them to get pressure on Brock Purdy, to shut down Christian McCaffrey, and then on the outside. That is a massive, huge strength. I mean, no Ward, there's no Hufanga, there's no Dre Greenlaw, just tackling everybody that's going over the middle of the field. Like, Houston is going to be able to, I think, score a good amount of points, maybe not needing to get over the 30 mark, but 24-17 in beating the 49ers. Then it's a home game against Denver. And remember, this is one of the best defenses in football. Pat Surtain, of course. And they just added the kid from Texas, Jahdae Barron. That might be the best secondary in the National Football League, up there with the Houston Texans. I think that's a loss, 19-20. They're 6-1. They dropped to 6-2, but do not threat. Although Denver and what they can do, Troy Franklin, of course, on that offensive side of the ball, and them being so excited about the next year. That's still a tough division. Denver is not a team that I think can make that run and be competing and win the AFC. They can get to the playoffs, but winning the AFC West is a tall task. 6-2 at that point, a loss, it happens. Home against the Jaguars, 34-7, an utter thrashing. It's tough for Trevor Lawrence. There's a whole bunch of rumors going around at that point with Trevor Lawrence and what are they going to do. Maybe looking to draft a guy. Like, what is going on at the quarterback spot? Blown out once again, putting up no points against the Houston Texans. That would be a combined, what would that be, 71-17 in the 2 games between Jacksonville and Houston. You can absolutely see it, right? You just have an advantage everywhere across the board. Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter, we got 5 guys on our offensive line. Well, you got Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker. We got Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson everywhere, and then the advantage at the quarterback spot as well. That point 7-2, they dropped 50 bomb on the Tennessee Titans on the road, 51-10, utterly thrashing divisional competition, moving up to get to a 8-2 record on the year, beating Tennessee. It's the same story as earlier in the year before a Thursday night game against the Buffalo Bills at home. This is two of the best four teams in the AFC, most likely. Josh Allen is going to be right there in the MVP race once again with Lamar Jackson and maybe Joe Burrow again this year. And it's a tough one at home. I think they lose 28-24, not able to pull out the win. It could be a factor in the seeding. That's that huge type of matchup where it could determine the Baltimore game, absolutely could determine the seeding. You got to get the 1 seed. We've seen the theme. The Chiefs, they get the 1 seeds, they get to the Super Bowl. 2 years ago, they didn't need it. They went on the road they beat Baltimore at Baltimore. They beat Buffalo at Buffalo, and they had that home game against Miami when it was -5 degrees. That was the 1 year they didn't need to do it. But for the most part, you got to be having the AFC champ game at home, playing your playoff games at home. It's just too tough with guys like Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Mahomes. Between those four, you want to only play 2 of those guys. You don't want to play all 3, or if you can, only playing one of them if you can be the 1 seed and have someone a little bit weaker come into you that you can play. After that loss, I got them with a win at the Colts, being able to pull that one off. A tighter game that Indianapolis is able to figure something out running the football against Houston. I would argue a little bit on the edges of that defense. That is the main weakness. If you can generate a little bit of a power run like Anthony Richardson, it's going to be a tougher matchup. Between the middle of that defense, it's tougher. And of course, having Danielle or Will on the chase. But in the secondary, that would be my biggest weakness for Houston, is their tackling ability. That sets up a game against the Chiefs. We've talked about the Ravens, the Bills, the biggest threats in the other divisions. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs, Sunday Night Football, a win 31-24 on the road at Arrowhead. I know it's GEHA now, but a win against Mahomes. Get that monkey off their back, right? It's a win against the Chiefs. Like, that momentum. We play them in the playoffs. We could do the same thing again. We hold the tiebreaker. If we wind up with the same record, we have the advantage for the postseason as far as the seeding goes. They got to play us at our house if we play them in the playoffs. That would be a massive win on the year. At that point, you're 10-3, home game against the Cardinals. It keeps it going. Marvin Harrison Jr. is only one guy, though, for Arizona. You could argue that Denzel Burke could wind up being a pretty good corner. Like, he could cover on that side, like, be filled in. But Denzel Burke and Will Johnson are just rookies this year. It's going to take time. Arizona, in 1 year or 2 years, that is one of the best secondaries. But Marvin Harrison Jr., you can wind up being able to have Stingley on him in man-to-man coverage and play pretty well. Or you need help over the top, they can do that as well. Just don't think Kyler's going to have all that much time. After that, blowout, 37-13 against the Las Vegas Raiders. How are they going to stop those guys on the outside? I don't understand some of these matchups. So what you're going to do, you're going to have to make decisions like drop 8 guys, 9 guys into coverage to try and stop Houston, and then they're going to be able to run the football. There's just going to be so many ways that they can beat you. That sets up, again, a game at the Chargers late in the year. At this point, they are 12-3, coasting along right there in the conversation for a first-round bye at SoFi Stadium. I do have the loss, 24-26. LA's so interesting because you would think with Justin Herbert, with Trey Harris, Ladd McConkey, that they're just all this lightning, explosive football team, but they are a boa constrictor. Not my term. It's a commentator for Fox Sports. He calls games with Gus Johnson. It's his term. He calls a boa constrictor because what they were at Michigan. Chargers are going to be very similar to that. Not turning the football over. They're going to be efficient running the football. They're going to take the ball away, which means that they're going to be in close games late in the fourth quarter where they have the football up by 1 score, run the clock out, or they just got their guy, their bell cow, to be able to do that in Amarion Hampton, as well as if they need to score to be able to go down and get points. They got a great kicker and Dicker the kicker, as well as the ability to go score points. But I do think that they beat the Houston Texans. Texans at this point, 12-4. but they got a home game against the Colts. Easy win, 30-20, finishing out the year 13-4, right there in the conversation for the number 1 seed. Once again, they are a spectacular roster. So much fun to look through and see where these guys went to college. My goodness. I mean, we're talking about Dalton Schultz. The first time I mentioned him right now, lost track of him, who had been good for Dallas for a long time, who had been effective throughout last year. Of course, Stephon Diggs. Don't know what a factor he could have been for Houston within that offense, but like they come out with Higgins and Noel and don't need to pay a guy $26 million. Just fine without it. Very exciting to see if they're able to develop. Of course, Cam Robinson, remember him in Alabama. They took Ursary in the draft out of Minnesota, and they are building every which way. That's what happens when you just hit with your draft picks within an offseason. They were the second worst team in football, and they get it right with CJ Stroud and the momentum they have built within that very horrible division in the AFC South. By definitely the worst in football between the Jags, Titans, and Colts of what I've got their records. Like I've got the Colts at 6-11. If there's anybody that I mentioned throughout the video that like that guy might be injured, I am not currently in LA where I'm filming this video right now. My present self when you're watching this video is in Africa. That's why I came out with it a couple of weeks before. As you can imagine, the difficulties of producing content in Africa, in Tanzania to be more specific. If you want to shoot me some fan mail, Tanzania maybe. I'd be able to see it, or I'm going there for the Great Migration as well as going to be out in Kenya. So that would be the reason why I maybe mention a couple of guys if there are injuries, unfortunately, that we would hate to see and would not like that to happen. But thank you so much. Let me know in the comments if you're on my path, if you're on the blitz train, like you're sending pressure just like me, thinking that Houston's going to be a good team, or let me know I'm dead wrong. Houston's not going to be as good as I'm letting on. Maybe the Jags are better than people think they were, or the Colts are going to be. Let me know what you think and also what type of content you want to see in the future. All said and done, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Appreciate you. Thanks.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blunder. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Blunder.
To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.